tomorrow's now. Rowena, Steve, welcome again. Let's start with The Guardian, which is just in a really dramatic picture which tells certainly the story of the day, and this is a picture of Rupert Murdoch, the boss of News International, of course. It's headline, Power, Corruption and Lies. This is after the evidence given to the Leveson inquiry by Sue Ackers today, which was day 41 of the Leveson inquiry, proves to be perhaps one of the most dramatic, Steve.
Well, unusually, we've had lots of drama up to now with celebrities and their stories and one thing or another, but really not much that's been, strictly speaking, new. This, today, what Deputy Assistant Commissioner Ackers said was nearly all new. First, there was the 2006 memo written by Tom Crone to Andy Coulton, then editor of News of the World, about a conversation that Rebecca Brooks, then Wade, had allegedly had with the police, where she had been told about the scale of the inquiry at that point, which was before, I think, the prosecutions of Goodman and Mulcair, which said there were hundreds of victims, etc., etc., etc. So that's now dropped them, in one sense, right in it. Secondly, and possibly more significantly, she talked about a culture of illegal payments. This would be the second time, the second newspaper that Rupert Murdoch owns, that has now been accused of having a culture that essentially supports practices of widespread illegality. It couldn't be more serious.
And the real issue here is that while, of course, all of this is going on, the man who presided over a culture of illegality in one area, and whilst this inquiry is going on, we've got him opening another newspaper on Sunday, and literally that is a huge, huge issue. And there's a real question now about whether you want someone like that to preside over another national newspaper, owning 40% of our national press.
But why is it an issue when Rupert Murdoch said we've drawn a line under this, we're going to be open, transparent, we're going to have a department which is there for people if they wish to complain?
The point is that this man was at the top whilst these issues were going on. Now, he was either complicit and knew about it, or he was totally negligent. Either way, with these new revelations, as we've just heard, this doesn't seem to be particularly sustainable.
I mean, it is systematic, it's systemic, is the difference here. It's not just a few rogue journalists, it's systemic. I mean, she talked about a culture of illegal payments, systems, management systems set up to facilitate and manage it, senior level authorisation, and they all, and plain evidence, they all knew it was illegal. I mean, that's
perhaps one of the most damning aspects of
it's a proper
evidence
conspiracy. I mean, even at the News of the World in the case of phone hacking, it's still not at all clear how widespread knowledge of what was going on was, even at the News of the World.
Yeah, but of course the really big issue is about whether this is going to be taken to the United States, because that's where the real damage could be done to Murdoch.
Well, and up to now, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, I mean, I've looked at this and tried to get anyone to give me a clue as to whether it's really likely to happen. In theory.
This is over 9/11 victims.
No. Well, this is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, is an American piece of legislation which means that American corporations, remember, News International is a wholly owned subsidiary of News Corporation, an American company. It gives the American authorities the power to investigate and to prosecute executives of American companies operating abroad or with subsidiaries operating abroad. So, in the event that what is discovered to have gone on at News International counts as corruption under the Act, theoretically, News Corporation could be investigated and ultimately prosecuted, including the man himself, by the American authorities. They are known to be terrier-like. Once they get started, they don't stop. And so that, of course, would be a complete disaster for News Corporation.
We'll come back to The Guardian in just a moment. I want to bring in the Independent's front page, which obviously also reflects on this, as I guess most of tomorrow's front page as well. But a picture there of Charlotte Church explaining in an exclusive interview, she says, why she had to take on Murdoch over phone hacking. Her and her parents settled today £600,000, half of that damages, half of that legal fees. But she has said in her statement, when she agreed to this settlement, she said, I wanted my day in court to ask these people why they did it. She said it became clear that no one was going to take to the stand, no one was going to answer her questions. So she effectively settled. But of all the celebrity testimony we've heard, the fact that from 16 years of age, she was regularly having her phone hacked. It seemed to, I don't know, did it hit home to you, Rowena?
Absolutely. I mean, this woman is beautiful and she's articulate, and what she does with this case is, while we're hearing about a lot of technicalities and a lot of legal issues, she brings a human side to it so that people who are watching from wherever actually really feel the emotional pain and the trauma that people are going through in this particular state. And I think what she really highlights is this sense of an invasion of privacy. I mean, when we hand over details, or when we're going through a police investigation, or when we're victims of crime, we expect our data to be protected. And the idea that it could just be sold off for the private benefit of individuals for particular gain.
Also in her case, I think it's her parents. You know, they had the misfortune to have a talented child. I mean, goodness knows what that's supposed to mean. And you know, the mother being blackmailed. We've heard blackmail stories before in this, with people being told, talk to us or else. But her mother being effectively blackmailed into telling the story of her own attempt to take her own life. This is a woman who clearly has some quite serious, personal issues. You know, the story about the father-in-law's, the stepfather's affair, all the stuff piled on the family. It's not even her half of it. It's a horrible story. Although in the end, I'm not sure that it moves us very much further forward. Where there's the other stuff, I think probably does.
And the other risk that I'm really quite worried about, and I don't know if you are, but as a journalist in the media industry, you get so worried because the public reads stories like this, and what they say is the press is a mess. The press is completely corrupt, and all of them are tarred with the same brush. And that makes, and let me just say one thing, is that nobody hates bad journalists more than good journalists, because it makes our job so much more difficult when you go and try and talk to someone and they say, oh, you're just in it for yourself.
And interestingly, I think you will see that the rest of the press, have been getting increasingly fractious about the impact that News International, the News of the World's behaviour has had on. With the stuff that came out yesterday, I think you could reasonably predict an even more aggressive stance by the rest of the press, especially the Daily Mail and the Telegraph, towards News International.
And particularly, what about the journalists who are in the Murdoch press who are actually particularly good and outstanding and didn't know anything about this?
Okay, Rowena, Steve, thank you. We'll be back in just a moment. After the break, we'll take a look at the other story on the front page of The Guardian. This is about the Costa cruise ship, which is stranded off the Seychelles with around 30 Britons on board. Back in a moment.